See,
Like,
I disagree because I think there's enough in the movie, like, they take the case away from him, and I love animals, so I kind of felt...
I might have fallen asleep during that part. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Nerd You're Looking For podcast, a weekly nerd culture podcast that discusses nerddom through various segments. My name's Tyler Hunt, alongside my co-host, as always, Pat Kuhn. How's it going, Pat?
It's going pretty well. I'm in the first day of the next 9 days off from work, so I'm pretty excited about that. I plan on doing very, very little. Usually I'm a pretty busy guy, so I'm looking forward to kind of doing nothing.
Yeah, we're kind of like in opposite positions. Like, I'm off this weekend, and then Monday starts my 9-day stretch before having a day off.
Oh, nice.
So, opposites for sure for this week. But, yeah, it's a crazy time of year.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really, really looking forward to it. I got Pokemon Sun, so I'm planning on playing a lot of that and just kind of just chilling. I mean, obviously Thanksgiving's coming up, and I'll go home for that. So there'll be a couple of days where we'll be in Louisville for some of that, but for the most part, when I'm home, I don't really plan. Like most people, like normal people will, I have a week off. Let's go do something. Let's go somewhere. Or go on vacation. I prefer to do nothing because I'm always doing like a million things between the podcast, YouTube, and just my 40-hour a week job. I always seem like I'm always doing something. So it's going to be nice to kind of chill for a little bit.
Yeah, man, that will be nice. For sure. I wanted to tell you a story real quick.
Okay, cool.
And it's not anything too crazy, but it really brought me down to where I am now in life. So, growing up, I was a huge metalhead, and I was in a metal band in high school, and I love the screaming. I love just hard rock. And yesterday, we mentioned before, I work at a retail store, and Metallica's new CD came out, and it's been a really good month for me in metal music because Metallica had a new CD come out, and I know you don't like them, but Avenged Sevenfold had a surprise album released earlier this month, and so I was pumped up about it. And at the store I work at, we have like morning meetings, and we talk about, like, with the whole team that's there, and we talk about stuff that comes out on Tuesdays and on Fridays. And
yeah,
I was like, and the Metallica CD comes out, I'm super excited about it, and everybody's like, what? And my boss was like, can anybody even imagine Tyler listening to Metallica? And I realized I've become like this soft old man that I don't know what they would imagine I listen to, like R&B, or I don't know, but it's like, oh my gosh, what's happened? I'm soft now.
Well, I mean, it's not a bad thing because, I mean, for a little bit, you actually were my boss, technically.
Yeah.
So I know work Tyler is a lot different than the Tyler that I know. So, I mean, it doesn't surprise me that they're surprised that you listen to that music. But, I mean, I'm kind of the same way. I'll make this short, but I had a show recently at a bar that turns out my boss's boss actually owns.
Yeah.
And so I showed up for the show, and I was just like, oh, hey, guy. And he was like, I didn't even know you did this until I saw the poster for it. He's like, oh, I know that guy. And I was like, yeah, I try to keep it pretty low profile. Like, try to be as professional as I can at work. So I get that they would be surprised because he was telling me, he was like, you're like the last person I would think of that would do something like this. And I was like, yeah, I try to keep it pretty professional at work. So I can kind of relate to that.
I mean, that's a good point. Like, I'm human resources at the store I work at. So if I rolled up every day with like metal music blaring out of my Jeep, and I had, my gauges in or my hair long still, like, I probably wouldn't be that approachable.
Yeah.
So it's probably good that there's a separation there.
Yeah, and it's probably good that I'm not going around doing abortion jokes at work.
That is also probably a good idea.
All right, so each episode we start off with a segment that we call What We're Into. It's basically just our way of kind of checking in with each other. Tyler and I don't get to have the nerdy conversations we used to have, so we kind of use this podcast as an excuse to have those conversations. So what are you into this week?
I watched the new animated Batman movie, Batman Return of the Caped Crusaders.
Okay. That's Batman 66, right?
Yeah. So this is basically, they're revisiting the Batman 66 series. It's an animated movie, obviously, because the actors that are still alive from that show are well into their 70s and 80s, so couldn't really do a live action version. But it stars three actors from the series: Julie Newmar's Catwoman, Adam West is Batman, and Burt Ward is Robin, and the rest of the voices, I believe all the actors have passed away, so it's just voice actors that do those parts. But it's revisiting that series, which is kind of cool. It's kind of like, whenever I heard about it, I thought that it was a good idea. Like, unfortunately, Adam West probably doesn't have, decades left on this planet, so it's kind of cool to revisit such a popular show with the actors while they're still around. Here's my thing. So I was never a fan of the Batman 66 show. Like, I'm looking right now at your box set of it. I have that exact same box set. Like, I appreciate what it is, and I'm happy to own it, happy to display it as part of my collection. But
how far did you get?
Not much. Like, I've seen a fair, like, I didn't binge it. I didn't sit down and try to binge it. Like, I've seen my fair share of the episodes over my lifetime.
Yeah.
But I
only got through season 2.
And there's 3 or 4.
I think there's 3.
Yeah, because it didn't go on a long time for how popular it was.
It's just, my thing is, and obviously I don't mean to monopolize the conversation again, but my problem was the way they split it up was weird. It's basically just like how they view it is it's 1 hour-long episode, and they just did it in 2 30-minute segments. And I guess, I don't know what the release schedule was, but it was just like a Tuesday and Thursday or Monday and Friday. I don't know exactly when they released it, but yeah, it bugged me a little bit that way.
There's like always a cliffhanger.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So this movie in particular, it's a little over an hour, and it starts off like you would imagine, like most of the 66 episodes start off like Batman and Robin are going to stop the Joker, Penguin, Riddler, Catwoman. Same old. But since it's over an hour, it's not like a 22-minute episode. It does take a bit of a twist in the middle, and Batman ends up kind of becoming the villain of the movie, which is a little weird. He gets infected with batnip by Catwoman, and he becomes...
Sounds about right.
He becomes villainous, and he gets a gun that like clones things or replicates things, and he makes a bunch of Batman clones, and he fires Commissioner Gordon and the mayor. And I don't know why Batman has the power to do that, but he puts Batmans in their place, and basically it's up to Robin and Catwoman to kind of stop him towards the end. So very cheesy, obviously. The animation is fantastic. It's very reminiscent of the show. There's everything in this movie that you would expect, like the whams, the pows, the classic Batman music is in it quite a bit. But like I said, here's the thing. Like, I appreciate that this show existed, but I kind of hate it. So, this show set the precedent for superheroes on TV way before it was going to be popular. It did a ton for comics as far as mainstream media goes, but it's something I appreciate. I just don't enjoy it. Like, people are saying right now, not my president. Trump is not my this is not my Batman.
Yeah.
So, for heaven's sakes, like, Joker farts in this movie.
Oh, really?
like we've come a long way from that, with the character of the Joker, and it's just not something that, like, when I saw that, I was done. So, this movie in particular, it makes me appreciate what Batman has become. It makes me appreciate the work of Frank Miller and what others did through the late 70s and the 80s. And I don't know, the end of the movie takes a very obvious shot at The Dark Knight Rises.
Oh, really?
In a conversation between Batman and Catwoman, like, very blatant, and it's crazy. And I was just like, all right, so you're going to shit on some of the best Batman stories ever told with the Dark Knight movies. But long story short, like, it's fun. If you like the show from the 60s, you're going to love this movie. Like I said, I'm happy to display it in my collection, and I can appreciate what came before all the Batman stuff I love. But it's not anything that I'll ever watch again.
Cool, man. I considered getting this, and I was like, maybe it'll be on Netflix or something like that. So I will probably eventually watch it, but it's not something that obviously I rushed out to get or anything like that. But I think I might like the show a little bit more than you. I do agree with a lot of of the things that you said. I think that there is, like, I think there's kind of a backlash against the show. I think, especially with a younger audience that didn't see it when it first aired. Not that I'm old or anything like that. I didn't see when it was aired either. But I kind of like fun, campy stuff. Like, if you go in that mindset, I think it's kind of fun. Like, I think it would be something that I would like if it was any other property but Batman. Like, the fact that it kind of set the precedent that most people for a long time thought that that's what Batman was, because that's all they knew of the character. So I don't know. It's fun, but it kind of wears on you after a while. Like, I'm glad that there's only a few seasons, and I couldn't even get through all of it. Like, there's only a few seasons, and yet I still, when I was binging it, couldn't get through all of it, because it does wear on you after a while. It is fun. I think I don't know his name, but the guy that played the Riddler was really great. I thought he was super over the top, and I thought it kind of fit that show. But yeah, I mean, I'm a fan of the show, but I think I like just a little bit more than you.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate, like, whenever I watch that show, like, I don't say, like, oh, this is, like, how'd they mess this up so bad? Like, I get what they were going for. I get that it was a comedy, and that, like, that's what they were going for, and that's what they wanted to do. But I don't know. It just doesn't fit within my idea of Batman, and I can't get my brain to, consistently be able to watch that and appreciate it. So, anyways, what are you into?
Well, I made a Nerd Year's resolution earlier this year. We do that episode every year, and it's always fun. I made a resolution to get into Pokemon. It was the same resolution I made the year previous that I didn't follow through on. And I said earlier this year when Pokemon Go came out that was kind of me fulfilling that, even though that was kind of a cop-out because I didn't really play it. I mean, obviously it's part of the Pokemon franchise, but it's different, obviously, being a mobile game. Pokemon Go is something that I know a lot of people have soured on that. I know, Tyler, you don't play it anymore, and there was a couple of weeks where I didn't play it, but the buddy system and the new bonus kind of brought me back in, and I've been playing it just as much as I played it before. If they could fix the tracking, it would be pretty much a perfect game. I mean, there's some glitches here and there, but for me, the big thing that they need to fix is the tracking. That being said, I didn't really expect to really get into the franchise. I figured that Pokemon Go was kind of going to be my closer to what I wanted. Like, I didn't think being so far removed from the franchise. Like, I played the red version when it first came out, and I got obsessed with it, but when the cards started coming out and the show came out, I just didn't get into that, and so I kind of separated myself from the franchise, and I certainly regret it because the game was really fun. But I figured, like, Pokemon Go was probably going to be the closest I was going to get to being a fan of the franchise. But the closer we got to the new game, Sun and Moon, the more I heard that it was really good, and I just kind of started kicking around the idea of actually getting it. I pre-ordered Sun on Amazon, and I'm going to go on a little bit of a rant about Amazon for a second, then I'll get back to Pokemon Sun. So, I don't know if I've talked about this before on the podcast. I know I mentioned that I am a member of Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
I do use it quite often, but one thing that I have noticed recently that irritates me is a lot of times what I will do, because I'm lazy, I still buy the occasional Blu-ray. I will go on Amazon and, like, pre-order a bunch of them ahead of time. Like, sometimes I'll pre-order them and they won't even have a delivery date or a release date yet. And so I'll go on and I don't have to worry about it because it's free release date shipping. So it'll be on my doorstep when I get home. Well, they've been doing this thing, and they've probably been doing it the whole time, is where if you order something and it's like they'll look ahead, and if you have something pre-ordered, like coming out the next week, let's say I order something on Thursday and I have something pre-ordered that comes out on Tuesday, they won't ship that thing that I ordered on Thursday until Tuesday to ship with the thing that I pre-ordered, because they're paying for the shipping.
But that goes against the 2-day
exactly
shipping, yeah.
So this came out on Friday. We're recording this on Saturday, so yesterday. I pre-ordered it, I think, Tuesday or Wednesday. And I got the email saying that it was going to ship and be there on Tuesday the 22nd I was like, what the fuck? And then I looked, and I had pre-ordered Hell or High Water, which is a movie that Tyler and I both really liked earlier this year. That comes out on Tuesday. I was like, you motherfuckers. And then I started thinking about it Friday morning. I was like, why the hell? I have this whole week off. Why would I wait until Tuesday and lose an entire 3 days of being able to play this game? So I canceled my pre-order, and I went to Target.com, bought it, had them pick it up at the store, went to the store, and as soon as I got off work on Friday, and I've had it ever since. So I know my $40 is not even like a drop in the bucket for Amazon, but I mean, they lost that purchase because they were cheap on the shipping. So that really irritates me. They've done it to me in the past, and it's never really affected me that much. This was the first one where I was just like, you motherfuckers, seriously. And they lost my business at least for that thing. Yeah. Again, it was only $40. So Amazon being the big company that they are, I'm sure they don't even care that I canceled it, but it was really irritating for me.
Yeah, man, that Target place sounds like a fine retail establishment.
Yep. I mean, it's treated me all right in the past. Anyways, so rant over. Like I said, this Pokemon Sun was released on the 18th, Pokemon Sun and Moon. I'm going to be real honest with you. I've been so far removed from the franchise. I know there's differences, but I picked Sun because I like the cover better. I know that there's more differences than that. Yeah. But I don't know because I'm not interested in the franchise. I'm obviously interested. I'm just so far removed from it that I don't know the differences. Yeah. So I just went ahead and picked Sun because I like the cover more, which is pretty much the lamest reason. But anyways, I haven't got to play it a ton. My wife and I went and saw Fantastic Beasts, which we're going to review here momentarily. Well, Tyler and I are going to review it. My wife and I aren't going to review it. Anyways, so I haven't really got to play it a ton. I've only got to play it for a couple hours, and I can already feel that I'm going to get addicted to it because I remember a lot of the reasons I loved the red version. It's almost kind of coming back to me. Most of my time that I've played, the couple hours that I've played, it's been spent just running through the grass trying to catch all the different Pokemon. That's my problem with not just this game, but RPGs in general, is I get lost in all the side stuff that you can do. And I very rarely, I'll go hours without playing the main storyline, which I've only played a couple hours, like I said, on this particular game. And I think maybe 25 minutes of it has been story, just because I had to do the story to get my starter Pokemon. So,
what Pokemon did you start with?
The Litten. Which is just
the fuck that is.
Well, it's because it's Sun and Moon. They don't have the regular Squirtle. What's the other ones? Squirtle,
Charmander, Bulbasaur.
Yeah. So you don't have the regular ones. You have the Sun and the Moon ones. So yeah, I picked that one because it looks like a little cat. Again, pretty much the lamest reason to pick something. But I will say that. Again, it's been so long since I played one of these actual games, not just Pokemon Go. When Pokemon Go was released, I noticed a lot of the OG Pokemon players complaining about the gym battles. And I was just like, okay, just get over it. I see what they're saying now. Now that I've gotten into Sun and I've battled a few times, I can understand, the gym battles in Pokemon Go are just a hot mess. It's just chaos. Oh, and in the regular games like this, it's much more, there's a lot more strategy involved. Okay. And so I appreciate that. And I mean, obviously I'm still going to play Pokemon Go, and it is what it is, but I can see what some of the, hardcore Pokemon players have been saying about Go for a while now. Okay.
Yeah. This was a big release yesterday, and it wasn't even on my radar, to be honest with you. And I have a 2DS. It was cheap on a Black Friday, and I've just played Mario games on it and haven't really gotten too into it. But I considered picking this up just for the nostalgia's sake. But I feel kind of like what you were saying, I feel so far removed. Like I'm used to like that original 120, 130 Pokemon that were out there. And I feel like that number has just exploded over the last however many, 15, 20 years.
I think they're like 740 something.
Jesus Christ. Man, I can't, like that's just, I would just probably.
I have a buddy that actually has gotten all of them.
Really? That's crazy. I would probably like so are any of the original 130, 100 or so, are they in this game?
Yeah, I've already caught one.
Like I'd probably jizz in my pants if I just saw something I recognized. So
yeah.
Out of 740, that's crazy. Yeah. So I feel like I'm pretty far removed from it. Like I appreciate Pokemon and I loved it growing up, and I was really into Pokemon Go at the start until they like you said, they messed with the tracking system and they took away my ability to play it and drive, which is probably
it's gotten worse.
It's probably for my own safety, but
oh yeah, for sure.
But I don't know. Like I'm half tempted to maybe get it, but I don't think that I have time for it.
So when was the last time you played Pokemon Go?
Pokemon Go?
Yes.
I don't know. When did we go down to the river and catch Pokemon that one day? Like, about that time. So over the summer.
Yeah. They've made it worse as far as like driving in your car. And I know people have complained because they get on the bus or they get on a train or something like that in bigger cities. We don't really have that problem here in Evansville because we're barely a city, but they've made it so like Pokestops, you have to be completely stopped.
Fuck that.
Yeah, it's really bad. But anyways, yeah, that's what I'm into. Obviously, I haven't played it that much, so I can't really like officially review it or anything like that. But I've enjoyed it the few hours that I've played it so far.
That's awesome, man.
And Amazon Prime sucks. All right, so our next segment is just plainly called Comics. Tyler and I read a ton of comics each week, and we like to spotlight one or two. So what'd you read this week?
I read a few comics this week, and the one that really stood out to me was Reborn 2. So I talked about Reborn 1 when it came out, probably about a month ago, and I'm just really digging this comic. So I'm kind of explaining what it was about the first time, but just the cliff notes, I guess. It's by Mark Millar, who did Kick-Ass and Kingsman and that kind of stuff, and it's drawn by Greg Capullo, who we've ranted and raved over with his work on Batman. And this book is, like I said in the first time I talked about it, it's basically about what it's like in the afterlife. So what happens when you die. And it strays from the heaven-hell that, modern religion kind of forces on us.
It kind of has a little bit.
There's definitely, like, there's a place where good people go and a place where bad people go that we find out in this issue. So, like I said, I'm really digging this so far. I feel like the afterlife is something that really hasn't been experimented with too much. Like, I think of movies like maybe What Dreams May Come kind of dealt with it a little bit, but, for the most part, it's pretty much, there's heaven and hell, and that's what the Bible says, and that's what we know it as. So I think it's kind of cool that Mark Millar is taking the idea of the afterlife being something, not completely different, but vastly different from what we've, been told it was our whole lives, and it's kind of sets for a cool story. So this book basically picks up where the last one left off. I forgot the main character's name, I apologize, but she's just entered the afterlife and she wants to find her husband.
Is it Bonnie?
Bonnie, that is. And she's trying to find her husband, Harry, and she's with her father who's going to help her. And something that I really like in this issue that kind of hit home for me was a dog from whenever she was younger, is there. And that made me happy, obviously, being a big animal lover and loving my pets, that, your animal would be waiting there for you in the afterlife. But then it kind of turns a little bit too. I'll spoil it a little bit, but this issue, like we said, does show that there's like a place where good people go and a place where bad people go. And the place where bad people go is like one of the minions of the Dark Lord there is a cat that she had growing up that talks now for some reason, and it's like a humanoid cat. So that was kind of weird and caught me off guard, but I thought it was kind of funny too, because cats are way less superior than dogs. So but one of the things that I really liked about this comic was there was an introduction of a character that Bonnie was friends with in her past life, and she's like Queen of the Fairies now or something weird. And that kind of stuff they haven't really explained yet, so I don't know how she became Queen of the Fairies, but they basically go to see her to see if she can help her find her husband in this afterlife. And she has become like this stone cold bitch, because her whole life she was raised to believe in heaven and hell, and she got to the afterlife and she was so sorely disappointed and so shocked and by what she had been taught being not true, that she's become like this stone cold queen fairy bitch.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I like the medieval kind of stuff that's in here, and it's a really fun book, man. I'm really excited to see where it goes. I think that there's going to definitely be some twists and turns ahead, seeing as Bonnie's trying to find her husband, and her dad didn't even know he had passed. Apparently, this afterlife is as big as 6 Earths, is what they say, and Bonnie's apparently the chosen one for some prophecy that we don't know a ton about. So there's definitely a lot of story left to tell. Like, I think they've only hit the tip of the iceberg of where we're going to go with this storyline, but I'm really, really digging it so far.
Yeah, I've read both issues, obviously, and I'm loving it so far. I will say that I think they did kind of explain why she becomes the queen of the fairies.
Did she?
Like, really briefly, and maybe it's just because of the way I interpreted it. Like, basically they say that how good you are determines not only where you land in the afterlife, with the good place or the bad place, but also like how powerful you are.
So she was so
good.
She was so religious and good that she's become queen of the fairies.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
So that's how I interpreted it, because he does mention it right before as they were going up to her little kingdom, her fairy kingdom. They did mention something like that. So that's kind of how I interpreted this. But the thing about this book, as cool as the writing is and cool as the concept is, it's just fucking cool as shit to look at, man.
Yeah. Greg Capullo being able to draw all these crazy things is a lot of fun.
The kind of the Dark Lord of the bad place.
Yeah.
Is just, he's cool as shit, man.
Yeah. He's such a good artist, and like, I love his work on Batman so much, but those are all characters that have been drawn before.
Sure.
Like with this one, he gets to basically just go balls out. So it's pretty awesome.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So what'd you read this week?
I read Thanos #1. I kind of went back and forth whether or not I was going to pick up this book. I'm interested in the character, obviously, but I read Thanos Rising, or Rise of Thanos. I don't remember exactly what it was called. I mean, this was years ago. I didn't even talk about it on the podcast because I think it even predated the podcast.
It was like right when we started getting back into comics. Yeah. I remember you reading that.
And honestly, like, this book, at least the first issue, is kind of much of the same as far as Thanos Rising was concerned. I do enjoy villain books that kind of revolve around these big villains, because you kind of get to do a little bit different types of stories than you would with just a straight superhero story. And obviously, I'm intrigued by the character. He's kind of one of the few big bads of the Marvel Universe. I guess you would put Doctor Doom, and there's a few others that you would put in that category. But with him, I don't know if there's a ton that you can do with the character, because they've built him up so much throughout the years. He's become almost this, I mean, he is a god. Yeah. I mean, he is just, I think the character is just a little bit too powerful, and so it doesn't make for very interesting storylines. This book does kind of leave with a pretty cool cliffhanger that I'm intrigued by. So I'll probably give it a couple of issues, kind of see where that goes. And I'll probably give it a story arc just to see where it goes. But, I don't know. I don't know if this book is necessarily for me. I think it would be best served as like a book for those that don't know that much about the character, want to know a little bit more about it before Infinity Wars and stuff like that, before he becomes a much bigger player in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I just don't know if it's necessarily for me. The visuals are really cool. I like how they draw the character, and just the artwork is phenomenal. So, like I said, I would definitely suggest this book for somebody that doesn't really know a ton about the character. I don't necessarily think that it's a book for me, though.
Yeah, I think we've said this back and forth on the podcast before, but with the amount that you and I read and pick up week to week, like, I'm very stingy about bringing on new series and bringing on additional #1s. And this one is just one that I contemplated, and it's just like, I'm too behind on the stuff I really enjoy to give the Thanos book a try right now. So it sounds like I'm pretty glad I didn't pick it up. Yeah,
I mean, it's not a bad book by any means. It's just, it's tough to do that character because, like I said, he's just, I think, too powerful, which makes for an awesome villain when he comes across like the Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that, because he is a foe that isn't easily dispatched.
Yeah.
But when you have your own book, it's tough because you can't really bring the Guardians in every issue. So it's like he's going against these guys that he can quickly dispatch, and it's not that big of a deal. The cliffhanger, like I said, I'm not going to spoil anything, but it's pretty cool. I'm interested to see where they're going to take the character, but I'm going to give it a couple more issues, and if it doesn't get any better than it did the first issue, then I'm going to drop it for sure.
Cool. So you ready for some nerd news?
Of course.
So every week we talk about the big nerd headlines that have come up since the last time we spoke. Today is no different. So I got a few storylines here. Not storylines, headlines, rather. Then the first one I know that you know about because I saw you share it on our Facebook page, and that concerns Super Mario Run. So
yep.
We've talked about this when it was announced, and it has both a release date and a price tag attached to it. So
yep.
It is coming out December 15th, which is less than a month away, and it is going to be $9.99. So this, if you don't know, is basically a game being released on iOS, and it's basically like the classic Mario games, except Mario doesn't stop running. So
yep.
It's kind of like, what's it compared to? Like Temple Run, I guess, kind of.
Yeah.
Just like a side view, and you're going through the maps that you're probably pretty familiar with. So I know from what you posted on Facebook that you're not too happy about the price tag.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know, like $10 in the whole scheme of things is really not that much money, but for a mobile game that I don't know I'm going to play it or would have played it. I don't know if it's something that I want to spend $10 on. Like even the Batman, the Telltale series, that was only $4. I mean, it was just for the first episode, but still, I mean, that's a full-fledged game that I'm getting, and it's only $4. So the fact that I'm getting this Mario game that, I mean, I've played the other Mario games, so it's like it's basically going to be the same game that I've played before, except for with a little tweak as far as him not stop running. But I don't know. It's just $10 is a lot, and I'm sure there's going to be microtransactions, buy lives and stars and stuff like that. So I'm sure there's going to be something like that, so they can continually keep the money flowing. But I don't know. That's a little too steep for me. I mean, I love the franchise. I love Mario. I mean, I grew up with it, but I don't know. It's just like that's a lot of money, man. That's pretty steep for me.
Yeah, I've not made up my mind yet. I would like to think that I'll be able to pass it up, but I'm sure someday I'll be sitting somewhere waiting on something and I'll buy it and just to play it while I wait. And I don't know. I just, I got super bored with like a game like Temple Run, or I've played those types of games before where you're just constantly running and you're dodging stuff.
Yeah.
And they get boring pretty quick. So I don't know what this game is going to do. Obviously it's a Mario game, so that's how it differentiates itself, but I don't know what else it's going to add in to, want me to continue to play it after 5 minutes. So I'm intrigued. Like, I know that this is Nintendo testing the waters, and I want it to be successful, so maybe they do release more games in the future that I'm more interested in. But, yeah, $10, you're right, is steep for a game like that.
I think it's going to be a game that everybody, well, not everybody, but like nerds like you and I are going to be really excited for about a week.
Yeah.
And then Christmas is going to come, and we're going to get all our Christmas presents. We're going to get some other games, and we're going to forget about this.
Yep, pretty much. So Deadpool 2 has a new director after Tim Miller dropped out, and it's pretty much what the rumors were that the John Wick director David Leitch was going to direct it, and that is what is happening. So he's signed on to direct Deadpool 2. I mean, I'm not familiar with his work besides John Wick, which was a fun movie. But I'm sure it sounds like he's pretty much just kind of working for Ryan Reynolds, I guess. I don't think that there's much that he's going to necessarily be asked to bring to it, like Tim Miller necessarily did. He's pretty much just there to roll the cameras, it sounds like. So I don't have too much of an opinion on it, but I did want to bring it up.
Yeah, I'm excited for this movie no matter what. But yeah, I mean, he knows how to shoot action. Obviously, John Wick was definitely a pleasant surprise for me. I really enjoyed that movie quite a lot more than I thought I was going to like it. So I think he's going to do a good job, but like you said, I think it's much more of a Ryan Reynolds project at this point. I mean, he was obviously a big component of the first movie, and him kind of butting heads with Tim Miller is the reason why Tim Miller is no longer directing Deadpool 2. So I definitely think that they needed somebody that could shoot action really well, and that could basically take direction from Ryan Reynolds, and not a huge personality. I guess I obviously I don't know him personally, so I don't know his directing style, but it just seemed like they're picking somebody that can kind of take direction from Ryan Reynolds, because that's obviously why Tim Miller left.
Yep, pretty much. So next story, Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys Targaryen on Game of Thrones, has joined the Han Solo movie.
Yeah.
So the spinoff that's coming out in 2018. They don't say who she's playing, but I'd imagine it's a new character.
Okay.
You would think. So that she joins the cast with Alden Ehrenreich, I think is how you pronounce his name, and of course Donald Glover, who's playing Lando Calrissian. And then I also saw in an interview Ehrenreich confirmed that Chewbacca was going to be in it, which I think was pretty much a given, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So I don't know. I think this movie is going to be a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to it. I think that she's a good actress. She tried to tip her toes into mainstream movies with like Terminator, and that obviously didn't go as planned. And she was in that other movie that came out a couple months ago, the romantic, not comedy, but it was like a drama. I forget some fucking generic romantic movie name. I forget what it's called, but this is obviously probably setting her up for what she wants to do after Game of Thrones, which is feature films.
Yeah, for sure. That cast is pretty awesome.
Yeah, I'm really looking. I'm curious who she's playing. Like, I'd imagine it's a love interest. Maybe it's not, though. I kind of hope it's not. But the thing with these prequels that I dislike is, unless she's playing a character that we've seen before, which I doubt, like, there's going to be a reason that she's not in the original trilogy. So either they have a falling out or she dies. So that's what I don't like about these prequels. But I mean, it's for sure going to be a fun movie. Like, seeing Han Solo and Chewbacca run around again, even though it's not Harrison Ford, I don't think that that's going to make much of a difference for me.
Yeah, and Donald Glover being Lando, I'm pretty excited
for sure.
about that.
He's gonna smash it. So I'm definitely looking forward to that. Probably looking forward to that more than Rogue One, and I'm really excited for Rogue One. Yeah, I'm super excited for Rogue One. Like, I know Darth Vader's not going to be in it a lot. He's just kind of like a looming presence, but to see him again on the big screen, it's going to be sweet. But I think that for all intents and purposes, Han Solo's the one that I'm the spin-off movie that I'm really excited for.
Cool, man.
Inhumans is going to be a TV show.
Yep.
So it's going to be on ABC, the same network that's brought us Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and I guess it kind of makes sense now why they canceled that movie that was supposed to come out in a couple of years. They're making it a TV show instead, and I have not kept up with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. at all, but from what I understand, they've introduced the Inhumans on that show.
Yep.
And from what I understand, like, this Inhuman show is going to have the classic characters that we know, like Black Bolt, or like I don't know them because I'm not very familiar with the Inhumans. I've never read those comics, but it's going to be a TV show instead.
Yeah, I'm not interested. Like I said, I do like the classic. I don't want to say classic's kind of a tough word because they haven't been around all that long, but I don't know. I like Black Bolt. Medusa's all right, but at least in the comic that I was reading, they made Black Bolt like this weird, like, superhero club owner thing, and it didn't work for me. And then what Marvel's doing right now is they're building up the Inhumans because they can't make X-Men movies or X-Men TV show, and so they're just trying to get rid of the X-Men and trying to build up the Inhumans, because let's be honest, there's no fucking difference between an Inhuman and an X-Men or a mutant or whatever. Yeah. It's just they wanted to make a mutant that they had the rights to so they could do this TV show or they could do these movies. Yeah. So it seems silly to me.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that, I mean, I say this all the time, but it's pretty cool that we have so much comic book stuff thrown at us that we have the option to not be interested in something.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So that's pretty cool. But like you, I can't imagine that I'm going to be watching this show. Yeah. If it was on Netflix, I'd give it a shot. But it being on ABC and probably being a 22-episode season sounds exhausting. So,
oh, yeah, for sure.
Last one I have is a trailer that you probably did not watch unless it was on Fantastic Beasts like it was for me. And that is the Beauty and the Beast trailer. A new Beauty and the Beast trailer was released this week. I've gone on record tons of times about what a big Disney nerd I am, and I kind of anticipated you not seeing it, so I just wanted to say that it looks awesome. It looks like they basically brought that movie to life. It's crazy. So
that's weird that we didn't see the same trailers when we watched the same fucking movie.
I mean, we went to different theaters. Like the trailers on my copy of that, though, of Fantastic Beasts that I saw were really weak. Like, it started with Beauty and the Beast, so I'm like, oh, we're going to see a bunch of great trailers. And then it was like a bunch of trailers for movies coming out in the next 2 or 3 weeks that I've already seen and I have no interest in. Like, I don't know. So
we saw the Rogue One.
There was no Rogue One.
Wonder Woman.
No Wonder Woman. That's what I was expecting, Wonder Woman, because it's both WB.
And I can't remember. I mean,
I saw The Purpose of Dogs, which pretty much almost made me fucking cry in the movie theater.
I don't even know what that is.
Oh my God, dude. It's fucking, like, it's just a movie that if you love dogs, you're going to go to and just bawl the whole time.
Yeah.
Like, the trailer almost made me cry. But anyways, I saw
Power Rangers. That was the other one I couldn't remember.
No Power Rangers. But, yeah, the Beauty and the Beast trailer. It looks really good. I'm really looking forward to that. It comes out in March.
Yep.
All right, man. That's it for Nerd News.
All right. Like we said earlier, we're going to review Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. It's based on the book of the same name written by JK Rowling, who also wrote the screenplay for the movie. It is directed by David Yates, who did several of the Harry Potter films. It's based 70 years before Harry Potter. Newt Scamander visits New York City in the hopes of releasing one of his many beasts that he keeps in his magical briefcase, but in the process he releases several that he must now retrieve. So I'm not sure if Tyler and I are necessarily qualified to review this movie, but that obviously has never stopped us before. Neither one of us, I know Tyler's, you've only seen one of the movies, right?
I saw Order of the Phoenix when I wasn't.
You fell asleep.
I fell asleep, and I've seen like part of the first one.
Okay. I've seen all of the movies, but that doesn't necessarily make me a fan of the movies. I saw them when my wife and I, she was my girlfriend at the time, we first started dating, and she was like, it would be fun if we watched all the movies. And it was at the point when we were dating that I was still trying to be a nice guy and do things that she wanted to do. So I agreed to that. And I mean, they're not bad movies. There's actually a couple of them that I do enjoy. The one, I don't even know their names. There's one where they kind of time travel a little bit, which if you listen to the podcast, that should surprise you that I like that one. And they kind of, throughout the film, like the third act of the film, they keep getting like surprising like help or something like that, and they keep thinking it's coincidence, but it turns out it's like their future selves have time traveled. Anyways, there's another one where there's like a competition between the different schools.
Yeah, Goblet of Fire.
Yes.
So I was working at a movie theater when that one came out, so whenever I walked through the theaters, like I saw part of that one as well.
Yeah, so I liked that one. But the closer we got to this movie, the more I actually found myself looking forward to it. Like, I had heard some good stuff about it. I saw the trailers, and the trailers looked pretty fun. So the more we got to it, even though like I said, not a huge fan of the franchise, the more we got to it, the more excited I got. Yeah,
so, I mean, just being, like you said, we're being honest here. We're reviewing this movie because we're equal opportunity nerds.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And I don't know, like, I didn't really think much of it. It was just something I had to do. But, like, the day of, like, I was excited to go see it. Like, I was excited to give it a shot and excited to maybe see, like, a different side of this universe that doesn't involve the Harry Potter character. So, I was looking forward to it as well.
All right, cool. So you just want to jump right in. We started each review with just kind of our general overview of what we felt about the movie. We call it broad strokes. So Tyler, what'd you feel about this movie?
So a lot of my broad strokes had to do with basically all the shit we just talked about. Okay. with me not really liking Harry Potter, to be honest. So, like, it's not made. This movie was not made for me. Like, I do hear when I watched this movie, I heard things that I recognize, like they say Hogwarts a couple times. Yeah. But when they say Hogwarts, my heart doesn't skip a beat or anything. Oh, yeah, sure. It's just like, oh yeah, those other movies.
That's cute.
All that. So that being said, like, I viewed this movie through a different lens than I think the general audiences are going to view it that loved it. After seeing this movie, I think that it was kind of pointless.
Really?
I don't know. It was a device to further set up this world and sequels to this movie, and to be able to keep milking the Harry Potter teat, even though it's not really Harry Potter anymore. So
I just got a mental image of somebody feeding off a Harry Potter's teat.
Gross. So, I mean, there were fun moments in this movie, and I was eventually invested in what was going on screen, but unfortunately, I didn't really get invested in the characters until the last, 10 minutes of the movie. So,
Really?
Yeah, I was really bored and just, I don't know. I went in with an open mind. I swear I did. And, it might be, like I said, because I'm not viewing this movie through the right lens, but I just wasn't interested once it got going.
So I think we're going to have the complete opposite reactions to this movie. So this movie, I felt like this is the closest I can feel to somebody that goes to see one of the Marvel movies that doesn't read the comic books. I felt like it very similar to that. This was the first time that I'd gone see a movie that I didn't really understand exactly. I didn't get all the Easter eggs. Like I said, I've seen all of the Harry Potter movies, and obviously this is going to be an unpopular opinion. Like I mentioned in not Broad Strokes, but the intro to this review, there were a few films that I did enjoy, but for the most part, I felt bored through a few of them. My problem with that franchise is that they have this big bad, and they're just kind of building towards him, so all the other films seem unimportant.
Yeah.
And so that was my problem. I felt bored through a few of those, especially the earlier films. I felt kind of bored. Nothing really substantial happens because they're building to that big bad. And I was afraid that this movie was going to be a lot of the same. And for me, which, again, it sounds like we're complete opposites here, it wasn't at all. I felt like more things were happening. And maybe they were superficial, but it still was fun to see them. The visuals were fun. There was very little of this film that you didn't get to see his beasts. He wasn't chasing one down, or they weren't in the case interacting with them. In some of the early Harry Potter movies, they're wizards, but nothing's happening. And so it was kind of nice to be in this universe and shit actually happen. And so that was kind of fun. I do have some story problems that we'll get to here in a little bit, and it definitely drags towards the end. There's at least 3 points in the movie I'm like, okay, movie's over, and then nope, it kept going. And there was a couple of spots there, but other than that, I think I enjoyed this movie a lot more than you did.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see where we end on it together, because it very opposite, I think. But one thing I want to mention about your broad strokes there. So you mentioned, in the original movies we're leading up to Voldemort, right? So in this movie, don't you think it's kind of leading up to a big bad in a way?
Yeah, but there's in the other movies, nothing happens in some of them, and I felt like there was plenty that happened in this movie that keep me intrigued. So it doesn't necessarily bother me as much as the original franchise, because there was shit actually happening in this movie. There's movies. And maybe it's just because I've not read the books and I'm not interested in the characters, but there's a couple of the movies, especially at the beginning, where I don't give a shit what's happening.
Yeah.
At least I gave some shits what was happening in this movie.
For sure.
All right, so next little segment that we're going to talk about is the story. So how'd you feel about the story?
So the biggest problem, and what it sounds like we're going to end up disagreeing on, the biggest problem I have was character development. I felt like characters are just thrown in periodically through this movie, and there's no arc, and I'm given no reason to care about them. And part of that might be that it's reliant on you reading the book first. And I don't know, maybe that's how people who don't read comic books or aren't familiar with comic books feel about the Marvel movies. I thought that was a great analogy you used. So again, I'm not probably the best person that you want to get your review from if you love the Harry Potter universe, but as somebody who hasn't read Fantastic Beasts and isn't familiar with these characters, just knowing them from this movie, I don't care about them. There's no arc. They're just thrown in periodically, and by the time I do start caring about them, the movie's over. So maybe I'll be more invested in the future sequels, but it's very straightforward. I feel like it relies too heavily on the atmosphere and people's love for this universe, that it doesn't strive to tell a story with a satisfying arc.
Okay.
There was no reason for me to root for Newt and his Fantastic Beasts. He just gets off the boat and we're supposed to go with it. So,
see, I disagree, because I think there's enough in the movie, when they're in the case and he's kind of interacting with his beast, and he talks about how nobody really cares about them and they kind of exterminate them. And then there's later in the movie, they take the case away from him. And I love animals, so I kind of felt.
I might have fallen asleep during that part. No, I did. I briefly, full disclosure, I briefly did. Now I'm remembering. I fell asleep, like after he meets, it's Jacob, right? The fat guy.
Yes.
I briefly after he meets Jacob, and then I woke up and they were in like the girl's bed, and then they go down into their house, and then they go down into the suitcase.
You didn't really miss a whole lot, by the way.
So, anyways, like just to wrap up my part of the story is like I said, like I didn't care about the 4 protagonists until the end of the movie. I felt like it did very little to build much sympathy for me, simply for them rather, for me. So that's what I kind of thought.
Okay, yeah, we're definitely going to disagree because, like I said earlier in the broad strokes, I like this because it didn't waste too much time getting to the beasts. Like you see a ton of them. Like most of this movie is he's kind of chasing them down or he's hanging out with them in the case. There's a couple of problems I did, however, have with the movie. A lot of the things were planted really, really fucking hard, and they were super obvious. There's a couple of twists at the end. The last one I did not care at all, with a particular character not being who he seemed.
Yeah.
That was pretty silly, and obviously that's going to be something that's going to build throughout the other movies. I thought that was pretty dumb.
Just on that note really quick, do you think Colin Farrell knew about that going into it? Because if I were him, I'd be pissed.
He would have to have. It had to have been in the script.
Yeah.
Now, who that character
was going to be played by,
and we're spoiling. We're coming close to the line where I feel a little uncomfortable with how much we're spoiling. But yeah, he had to have known.
Okay, I was just curious because,
and there's 5 movies. You have to sign a contract. I'm sure he knew that his contract was only for one movie, or maybe he comes in the other movies. We don't know. Anyways, that big twist was pretty silly. I didn't really see that one coming. There was another one where it was planted super hard, and it was a red herring. Like, I can't even wrap my head around like that surprising anyone. It was planted so hard, and it was definitely a red herring. But again, I did like this movie. There's only a few things that I didn't like. The wizard government stuff really is boring. It's super boring. Yeah. I don't give a shit. And maybe that's just because I don't care about the Harry Potter franchise as a whole. Like, I'm not invested in this universe. So when they go into the little government building, I was just like, oh, like, come on, man. So I really just wanted to see more of the beasts and Newt and Jacob hanging out together, and I didn't want to see the rest of that other stuff. But again, I don't mean to keep bringing this back to Marvel, but this felt like a Marvel Cinematic Universe movie in the sense that the villain was really bad. super bad. Like, the big action piece at the end, I didn't really care about because I didn't care about the villain. I knew he was going to be dispatched pretty easily, and that he wasn't going to be in the other movies. And it just, that kind of bothered me because I knew I was supposed to care that what was happening, but they had established that wizards can just fix things with their wand. Yeah. So I knew the destruction didn't matter because they were just going to easily fix it. It reminded me a lot of Guardians of the Galaxy, the way I felt after Guardians of the Galaxy ended. I really loved that movie. I wouldn't necessarily say that I loved this movie, but because I loved the characters. I loved hanging out with those characters. The villain was just a device to get these characters together and give them a purpose. And I felt like this really bland villain in this movie was a lot like that. I wanted to hang out with these characters. I just didn't really care that much about the villain. Okay.
Yeah, that's fair. I mentioned not caring about our 4 protagonists. It should be a given. I did not care about our antagonists either.
Yeah.
And Ezra Miller's haircut was fucking awful.
Yeah, it was really bad.
It was distracting.
Yeah. We do agree there. So our next segment is just performances. How'd you feel about the performances?
So I don't have any complaints about the performances. Actually, like I thought Eddie Redmayne like did a fine job. He basically played Stephen Hawking before like the onset of his illness.
Okay.
And what's that movie called? Oh my god,
Theory of Everything.
Yeah, Jesus. Theory of Everything. He kind of plays like a shy little scientist guy, and that's fine. He does good at it. Colin Farrell like didn't do anything special. He didn't knock it out of the park.
He wasn't really in this movie that much.
No, but I mean he wasn't bad. Nothing to complain about. Like everybody did their job. The one thing I will say is the guy who plays Jacob,
Dan Folger.
So he's a poor man's Jack Black. And
did you not like him?
No, he was good. So here's the problem.
I loved him in this movie.
I loved him in this movie, but every time I saw him, I thought about the previous movies he's done that are
the ping pong movie,
like Balls of Fury, like Good Luck Chuck, where he says that he wants to suck a fart out of Jessica Alba's ass and hold it like a bong hit. That's what
I've never seen that
movie. That's the stuff I saw when I saw him, and I'm like, oh man, it's one of those things where like his previous work is just like kind of wormed into my brain. But I thought he was fantastic in this movie, and I hope that it kind of turns a new leaf for his career, because before this movie, he's been a poor man's Jack Black, but he did a good job.
Yeah, so. His facial expressions in this movie were fantastic. Yeah. Pun intended.
God damn it.
But no, I agree with you. Everything that you talked about. I thought Eddie Redmayne's chemistry with what's her Catherine Waterston was great. I thought their characters really fit together. But he stole the show for me.
Eddie Redmayne?
No,
Jacob.
Yeah, Jacob.
Dan Fogler.
Yeah, he stole the show for me. He was fantastic.
Awesome.
All right, so the next one, and I think we're going to be kind of quick on this one because we kind of talked about it before, the action or CGI or whatever you want to call it. How'd you feel?
So, I don't know. The action was fine. Like, it was wizard magic action, and it looked good. So, CGI-wise, I wish that some of the beasts looked a little better. I thought that it was a little too cartoony. But then there were other scenes where I was just like mesmerized by the effects. Like there's a scene where kids are skating on ice.
Yep.
And then you see like a glowing thing go under the ice, and that scene is beautiful and it looks amazing. And I don't know if any of that was practical or if it was CGI, but like that scene, you go from that scene just looking beautiful to some cartoony giant elephant type beast that he has. I forget what it's called, and that they're chasing through a zoo. And I'm not interested because it's obviously CGI'd. And I just feel like CGI's come such a long ways that it could have looked better.
Oh yeah, I completely agree with you. I did love the visuals. I did like seeing the beasts, but the CGI definitely could have been better. Like if this movie had come out 15, 20 years ago, we would have been blown away by it. But now that we have such great CGI at this point, the technology has really caught up. There's some aspects of it, like you said, that looked really good. And then there's some, like, especially when he was like interacting with the beasts, it was so obvious that it was CGI. Like when he's like petting the bird, I'm like, that is garbage.
So what I thought about was I've seen like behind the scenes of how they do it on Game of Thrones with like the dragons.
Yep.
Emilia Clarke, who we just talked about, that she uses this fake dragon head to act against. And in that scene where he's petting the bird and telling the bird thanks or whatever, he is obviously acting up against something that's there, but it doesn't look right. Like I could definitely see how bad that was. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen it done better in other movies, like The Jungle Book, for example. We reviewed that earlier this year. There's a human being acting with a CGI creature, and it looked so much better.
Yeah, so I was disappointed with some of the scenes there for sure, but overall, there were scenes that were done well also. So
for sure. All right, so star rating.
So before I say my star rating, I want to preface this. Like, so my review is for people not interested in the Harry Potter universe. Like, if there's a Harry Potter fan out there, do not take my review as Bible. Not that anyone should take my review as Bible, but if somebody were to come up to me and say they love Fantastic Beasts, I would not think any less of them, because I could see how a Harry Potter fan would love it. That being said, not being a Harry Potter fan, not loving this universe, I'm giving it a 2.5.
Wow, that's
I don't feel like I can recommend it because I felt like it was boring to me. Like so that review is for people that don't care about the Harry Potter universe. Like if you haven't cared about it up till now, this movie's not going to change your mind on it.
Wow, I didn't expect that. I thought we were going to be a little bit closer. I actually thought that maybe I'd go between 3.5 and 4, and I ultimately decided on 3.5. So we're a little bit further apart than I thought we were going to be.
Yeah, I don't know. I used kind of a weird method to rate this movie, and it may not be fair, but like I said, we've kind of set the precedent that 3 is a recommendation, and for me to recommend it to someone who doesn't really like Harry Potter, I don't feel like I can do that because it's not going to change their minds.
Cool, man.
So you ready for Nerd Favorite?
Of course.
Every episode, we top it off with a Nerd Favorite where one of us asks the other what their favorite blank is. It's my week this week. So, Pat, I want to know what your favorite mobile game is. So we talked about Super Mario Run, and I'm just kind of curious, like you've brought up different mobile games in the past 3 weeks. I'm curious which one is your favorite to play. Mine is, like, I'm not into them as much as you are. Pokemon Go had the opportunity to be that game, and it just kind of lost me after a few weeks. So I'm going to say the game that I've probably sunk the most time into, and that is Angry Birds Star Wars.
Okay.
So I got super into Angry Birds when it came out, and it was a lot of fun, and I loved the strategy involved with it. And then whenever they put out Angry Birds Star Wars, like it was done. Like I already loved the concept of this game, and even though it's not anything too crazy Star Wars related, just adding that element to it was really fun. And like I said, I love the strategy to it. It's easy to pick up and play for a little bit to pass some time and put back down. So Angry Birds Star Wars is the game I sunk the most time into on my breaks at work, and it's something that I still play occasionally to this day.
Cool, man. Pokemon Go would be the obvious answer for me, but I've talked a little bit about it on this episode and more on past episodes, so I'll stay away from that just for the sake of conversation. The game that I'm going to pick is actually another Star Wars game. I think I've brought it up on the podcast before. It's a Star Wars Force Collection, which basically is just this card collecting game, okay. And you battle other people, and you have like formations, and it's really fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The few months that I played it, pretty hardcore. You can join these like legions, and it's other people playing the game, and they have different events that your legion can go up against other legions. It's a lot of fun. I thoroughly enjoyed it. The problem with that game, and the problem with mobile games in general, I talked a little bit with Super Mario Run. I don't spend money on mobile games.
Yeah.
I've bought the occasional coin pack of coins in Pokemon Go here and there, but for the most part, I don't spend money on mobile games. That's why I have an Xbox. I'm going to spend money on those games.
Yeah.
Mobile games is just something that I do to kill the time. And so I kind of started to not necessarily get bored with Force Collection because it is a really fun game. I wasn't into it as much. And then they had this big tournament, and I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna play the shit out of this tournament. Like the idea of the game is you have these battle crystals, and you can only battle as long as you have the crystals to do so. And your crystals would regenerate. I think it was like every hour. And so during the tournament, I literally set a reminder on my phone every hour to remind me to play the game. And so I played as physically as much as you possibly could this weekend during the tournament. And they had like a leaderboard and everything. And you got different rewards for getting like top 100 or whatever. And that was kind of my goal. I was like, I want to be top 100. Didn't even come close to that. I was like top like 2,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
And I looked, and like I said, I played the most I could physically play without spending money on this game. I had 298 wins and only like 2 losses or something like that. And so I played a lot, and I basically did as well as you could expect somebody to do in the tournament. And I looked, the guy that won the tournament, the number one guy, had over 2,000 wins. So I can't even imagine how much money he would have had to have sunk into this game to play that much. Because like I said, I played as much as I physically could without spending any money. And I was just like, at this point, I can't compete with those people.
Yeah.
And if I'm gonna play this game as much as I've played it this past weekend, and I'm only gonna be like top 2,000 or whatever it was, it's like, why am I gonna sink this much time into something that I just can't compete with these people. So I just completely fell out with the game.
Yeah, that's that's disappointing that how much money you spend dictates how well you do. Like, it's basically just buying your place on the leaderboard, so that's a bummer.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I mean, it is a really fun game, Star Wars Force Collection, if you're into the franchise. But like I said, I wouldn't expect to go in if you're like me that don't want to spend a ton of money on it. I wouldn't expect to, like, be this awesome team. I mean, I did have a pretty sweet formation by the end of it, but that took me like 3 or 4 months to build that up. But it's still a really fun game if you're interested.
Awesome.
All right. As always, you can follow us on Twitter and Instagram. They're both at The Nerds Podcast. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Google+, vote for us for our Podcast of the Month at podcastland.com. Comment and subscribe to our YouTube channel, The Nerds You're Looking For. You can also check out our Twitch channel, which Tyler does a weekly stream every Monday at 9 p.m. Central. Subscribe, rate, review us on iTunes, Stitcher Radio, basically any good podcatcher you use, we're on it. You can also email us at thenerdsyou'relooking@gmail.com. You can also check out my stand-up. I'll be at Someplace Else Bar here in Evansville, Indiana on December 1st, and also the Legends Sports Bar and Grill in French Lick on December 2nd. For Patrick Kuhn,
Tyler Hunt.
we are the nerds you're looking for. Take it easy, guys.
Later, guys.